Hi, good afternoon, guys. Thank you so much for joining us again. I'm here with Marta.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Marta, I met her at church, and I love her mindset and the way she projects herself. Like she's always very nicely dressed and very professional. And when I dug a little deeper, I found a very deep person. Like she's got a lot of experience in life, and we like to connect with people that are like-minded. So thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for inviting me and for having me. I know we kind of went on a rant for like almost an hour talking outside of church, but it was nice to connect and kind of get to know each other. And thank you for having me here.
No, thank you.
I'm excited.
So we started it's called the 5 a.m. Club book that we're reading, and we kind of wanted to put it in practice. And that's how we started the conversation. And we started talking about all kinds of stuff because we're entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
And you're a realtor?
I am. So I have my real estate license. So I used to be licensed in California. So I lived just a little kind of, I'll do like something really quick about myself.
Tell us about yourself, definitely.
Yeah, so I'm originally born in Mexico. So I'm from Sonora. And then I came here when I was 8. When I got older, I was like, I want to get out of here and kind of venture on my own. So I moved to South Florida.
Okay.
And I work for hotels as well.
Wow.
So
What part?
so I moved to Key West.
Okay.
So I worked with Waldorf Astoria there in Key West.
Oh.
And I was there for almost 2 years. And then I moved to LA. And I spent almost 7 years in LA at the Beverly Hilton. And then after that, I wanted to come back home because, once you leave, you miss it.
Of course.
And so then I came back here and opened the hotel that I'm in right now, which is Caesars Republic in Scottsdale. Part of their executive committee there. I'm their director of rooms. And then in the meantime, while I was in LA and coming here, I got my real estate license.
How did that start? Why did you get your license?
So when I was 22, I bought my first house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And it was probably the worst time to buy. It was right after the recession. People thought I was crazy.
It was after the recession.
It was after
What year was this?
2014, I believe, or
It's
20.
actually, 2014 was a weird year, but yeah.
I think it was 2014, if I remember correctly. But I was young. I didn't know kind of what I was doing, right? But I wanted a house, so I ended up getting a house, kept it. And so now that has become my first rental property.
Where do you have it at?
So it's in Surprise.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do the people that told you were crazy think now?
Well, I bought the house for $72,000, and now it's almost worth $400,000.
I'm just guessing, but that's basically it.
And I cash flow a little bit above $1,000 a month for it. So people really like my family sometimes told me like, oh, you should sell it, or like, and I just really didn't want to do it because my mom lived in that house for many years. And so now they're like, oh my God, good thing you didn't sell it, or,
You're a genius now.
Yeah, or even when I wanted to like rent it, they were like, oh, that's a scary market. Like people could destroy the house. And so there was like a lot of fear that came in. And so really having to like, I mean, if I could give anybody advice, is like not like block out the fear, block out the noise, and just like do your own research and kind of just go for it. Because, I think not only like I'm Hispanic, so in the Hispanic community, we're very scared on like making big moves. And so what I've kind of done in my life now is like, I'm making the big moves no matter what.
You got to push yourself. And I'm going to take you back a little bit because there's several things that I want to touch on there. One of them is people will always tell, one thing of advice that I got a while ago is go against the current, right? Mm-hmm. Most people will tell you, don't do it. So they told you, don't purchase. Those people, did they own a home back then?
They didn't. So I was actually the first one in my family to purchase a home, like from my sisters. But then once they saw I did it, then they bought the house. So it kind of like...
You break the chains kind of, right?
Exactly. Like broke those like chains and kind of did
mindsets.
And the mindsets. And so that's kind of been my focus now. So now I have a second home that I live in. So when I moved back from LA...
Congrats.
Thank you. I decided to buy another house. And... it was still scary because then I was going to rent the other one.
It's always scary.
Yeah.
One thing that I want to share in that section there is like, everybody says, you know what? But the houses are expensive right now. Mm-hmm. Was that how expensive when you purchased it? The one at $70,000? Was that a lot of money?
Yeah, it was.
Right?
Yeah.
And then now, was that a lot of money again?
Yeah.
And then no matter when you purchase, you're always buying kind of like on the top of your budget because that's you want what you want right now, right?
Yeah.
And people don't realize that over time, things change. The property you bought for $70,000, that tenant is making a mortgage payment of how much? How much do they pay you?
They're $2,400.
And you cash flow. Cash flow means any excess money above the
Correct.
mortgage payment.
Yeah.
So you make $1,000.
Yeah, more than that. Yeah.
More than how much is it? It's okay.
So.
If it's okay with you,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah, no, of course. It's probably about 1,300.
1,300.
Yeah.
Okay, your mortgage payment. How much is
It's
it?
about $800.
So because that other one helps you with this, no?
Correct.
So, and this is the beauty of real estate, and this is the beauty of leverage. People don't realize that we're in a beautiful country
Yes.
where you're able to borrow. The bank is willing to say, you know what? I'm going to lend you 96.5% for you to buy a house that you're going to keep the equity.
Yeah.
All I need is my mortgage payment. And that minimal amount, so the $70,000 home, how much down did you put? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was 3.5. I actually did, back when I did it, I did a HUD program because I was 22, first time home buyer. And so they introduced me to that program actually through a friend that bought her house like that. I ended up buying the house like that. So I think I ended up not even 3.5% because they gave me, I think, down payment assistance back then.
How much money did you put down? You remember?
Not maybe $1,000. I don't
$1,000?
know. I think it was like,
Sure.
yeah, I think it was like $1,000. It was like nothing.
Just think about it think about this. If you bought this house for $70,000, which most people will get fixated on the $70,000, but not at the $1,000 you need it. When you go get a rental, you need probably $4,000 or $5,000 just to get in.
Correct.
Deposit, initial deposit, first month's rent, all kinds of stuff. So you got in with $1,000. That $1,000 turned into a $330,000 profit, right? That you haven't capitalized on, but
Yep,
it's there.
It's there if I need it. If I could do like refi if I want to, cash out. Like I could do different things.
Think about it this way too: like you're getting $14,000 on your $1,000 investment. Now the second home you purchased, how much did you put down for that one?
So for that one, I did put down 3.5%.
Okay.
And I actually got very lucky. I'm gonna tell everybody if you want things in life, write them down, right? And write down
Exactly.
exactly what you want. We talked a little bit about this and have your vision board. And I wrote down the neighborhoods I live in. My sisters all live in. We really like it, and so family is very important to me. So I put there the zip code I wanted to live in.
Can you share where that is at or no?
Yeah, so that's the zip code's 85304. So it's North Glendale.
Okay.
And the reason I wanted to be there is because the school system's really good. All my nephews have grown up in that school system. All my sisters, 3 of them, they all own their homes. They live 7 minutes away from me.
Wow.
On different directions. Actually, one of them, you helped them get the house.
Oh,
or
yeah,
your
that's
team
right.
did. Yeah. And she also wanted to live nearby. So that was one of her
That's
goals.
crazy.
So it ended up working out so good that I bought my house first. And then she ended up living 7 minutes from me. So it was like God just works in such a cool way.
Mysterious ways, right?
Yes. But I ended up doing 3.5% on that one. We offered below asking, and there was 3 other offers, and I got it. So I
Wow.
really truly think like God's
That
like,
is a
this
blessing.
house is yours.
Yeah.
And we got it. When I had initially looked at it, it was listed at a price that was outside my price range. But I was really fixated on like, I want a pool, I want the zip code, I want these items. And then it ended up working out that they lowered the house. And
Wow.
I was able to get it. Yeah.
Como dicen, if it's for you, it's for you, right? It's
Sí,
gonna happen.
Aunque te quites. No, aunque te pongas o aunque te quites. Si es para ti, es para ti.
100%. So that's one. I wanted to go on a rabbit hole there because your sister, her mindset is also awesome. So I met with Kevin, your brother-in-law, and I sat down with them and I kind of opened up their eyes to say, hey, you need to get into a home, and this is why it's important. But you guys have a similar mentality. Like, you guys are go-getters. You're going to go get it done, and no matter what.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to get in your way.
Yes, exactly. So when I told her, when she told me she was looking for a house, I had just actually arrived from California, not too long into that. I'd maybe been here for a couple months. And she told me like, oh, we're looking. And I said, well, have you gone to go look at any house? She's like, oh, well, it's because we're looking at different things. And I was like, well, you got to kind of put it out there, right? Like that you want this energy. Like, and that's what I tell people about when they want to get a home. I was like, if you haven't gone pre-approved because you're waiting or you're unsure, like, just do it. I was like, because even if you're not ready to buy, they'll tell you what you need to get
Exactly.
ready to buy.
That's
Yeah.
huge. That's a beautiful advice, because most people think that we're going to sit them down, we're going to twist their arm and forcing them into getting home. And that's the first thing we want to do, is we want to see where you're at.
Yeah.
Because if you, a lot of people have in their mind that there's a certain way that things work, and sometimes they're not even logical, right?
Correct.
Good example is most people think that paying their, let's say they have collections and they're really old, that's going to help their credit. And it's like it's like something that is dead, right? Just think about it, of a dead body.
Yeah.
When you pay a collection, it becomes a zombie and it drops your credit score. So little things like that people don't realize.
Yeah.
It's always good to sit down and kind of find out where you're at, because you can be doing things that you think they're right and they're not. So it's always good to sit down and find out about that.
Well, I also tell them, I'm like, it lets you establish your goals of what you need to do to get to whatever your goal is, right? So if your goal is to buy a house, I'm like, but your credit is not there yet, or maybe, you don't know what you're qualified for. I said, then it gives you a good like blueprint to say, okay, I have to do X, Y, Z before I can move into whatever area I need to move into. So like a friend of mine who wants to get a house, I told her like, go speak to, a loan officer and talk to them and see what they need. He gave her some great advice. She started working already towards, what he told her. And then she's on her way. So I'm like, you're one step closer than you were.
Not only that, you're going to be better prepared. Let's say you need to work on your credit. Let's say your credit's good, but you have to wait for the lease to end, whatever the situation may be, for that bonus to kick in for you to buy the house, which in reality, you can get a house no matter what at any time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can get prepared and get a better rate, right?
Yeah.
Like the more prepared you are, the better the situation and scenario is going to be for you. I want to take you back a little bit, though, because I read a lot, as you can tell, and I love it, because I learned so much about stuff like Waldorf Astoria. You mentioned you worked there. You know their story? How they open up the hotel and stuff like that?
In New York?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to share a little bit about that? Because I think I see you, and I told you, the way you dress, the way you present yourself is very professional all the time. And one of the things that I learned from that is, no matter what you do, you have to do it 100% right.
Well, a big part of Waldorf, I don't know the exact story you're referring to, but a big part of Waldorf and hotels. So I kind of been working in the luxury hotel kind of area for the last maybe almost nine years.
Okay.
And a big part of the luxury hotel, and I've been working with Hilton for most of that time, or actually for all of that time, with Waldorf, is creating unforgettable experiences, right? So they're saying like anybody could offer a bed, anybody could offer, a nice hotel, luxury items, but how does that make you feel? And so a lot of the training that I do with my team, so I run the entire front office and housekeeping department. And so one department is very face forward, so they see the guests right away, and the other department, they may never see the guests, right? But how do you create a luxury experience for the guests regardless of what you're doing? And so it's really of how you made them feel. So like one thing I tell the front desk all the time, it's like, it's personalized. Like, find out about me, right? Like, make me feel special. It's the way you look. It's kind of, we call it hitting all your senses. So when you walk into like a hotel or like your home, right? What do you feel? What do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? Because all of that is going to kind of hit your senses, and that's going to make you either feel very special, or you're going to be like, I want to get the heck out of here, right? So in hotels, we focus a lot of that in like that feeling. And making the guest feel special is a lot of personalizing it to them. So finding out where they're from, why are they coming, what can we help you to make it effortless, to personalize that service. And so that's what we focus on, in the hotel
Delivering
industry.
that experience. And one of the things that I read was about this guy that was arriving really late or early in the morning, and they knew that he was supposed to be here earlier and that the flight got delayed. And they said, you know what, mister, whatever, you're coming in, I know you're tired, leave everything here, we're going to take it up to your room. So don't worry about anything, everything's already taken care of. We'll wake you up at the time you have your meeting, so that like everything was to the T. Effortless. So you walk into that, and you, like I stayed at the one in Vegas, and it's a whole different experience.
Oh, that's a nice one. I stayed there as well. It's so nice. Yeah.
And I love it. And once you go through that, you're like, I don't think I want to go back.
Yes.
Right? So it's how you deliver that experience. And we're about that too. Like, we're little by little, we're improving, because it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you're always looking for ways to improve and get better, right?
Correct.
So going back to the improving and getting better, where I wanted to get at is our conversation we had when we were at church. And it was, we're reading this book, The 5 a.m. Club, and it talks
Great
about
book, by the way.
right.
I love it so much so far.
Dale,
Favorite
dale.
nugget in the book is, and he repeats it all the time, and he says, it's always hard at the beginning, messy in the middle, and beautiful or wonderful at the end. I don't know the exact word he uses, but we were talking about improvement, right?
Right. And it's little by little.
It is little by little, and it's always hard. Sometimes, the hardest part I tell people is starting, right? It's the hardest part is saying, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. I'm going to do the workout, or I'm going to do, read a book, or whatever it is that you want to start doing. It's always hard because you're not used to it. And or maybe you've never done it before. I used to hate reading. I read 42 books in the last couple of years.
Wow.
A little bit more probably now, but
42.
42. I mean,
That's
I got
awesome.
on this, and it was a combination of like audiobooks and real books. I stopped listening to music on my way to work. Like I'll listen to
You
an
feel like you're
audiobook.
wasting your time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll listen to like an audiobook, or like a YouTube video of like certain author, or when I'm working out, or when I'm, getting ready in the morning. Like that's all idle time that sometimes you're not doing anything. And like now I'll do a lot of, kind of listening in. Even I meditated to some of these books. Like I read the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, and I would literally lay in my bed and like put on my headphones and just have the audiobook go. And I had a notebook, and I would write down like any takeaways. And I think I sent to the
And you're a
group chat-
machine. Like those takeaways you sent over, I'm like,
Oh,
oh my
yeah.
gosh, like you got a bunch of notes. That's good.
Because like I'll like hone in, and then I'm like, think something stands out, and I'm like, let me write it down, right?
Yeah.
And I do it on my phone notes. I think I showed you my
Yep.
phone notes because it's easy, right? Because what do you always have in your hand?
Your phone. Yeah, it's a lot easier to get to. And I started doing that too, the notes.
Yeah. And it's like, so then I'll do different books. And when I'm talking to people, like, because my team is very young. So my team they're very young. They're college students. A lot of them are barely getting in the workforce. And so when I talk to them, I always say I'm kind of like a leader, but they're therapists at the same time. Is what do you feel like?
I love that.
And trying, and they're, coach and inspiring them. But a lot of times I'll share with them, like, oh, I read this book. And, these are some key takeaways from what I wrote down, because I don't always remember off the top of my head. And a lot of them have read those books, or, kind of like what you're doing with your team where you guys start a book club. But I recommend these books to them, or I'll bring one in and let them borrow it. And that kind of really helps me at least give them my takeaways to kind of hook them. And so then they can go in and read that book.
They become curious because I think we were forced to read when we were in school, and I didn't like reading before either. Like
I hated it.
Yeah, I hated it too with a passion. However, once you start reading and you start uncovering all these secrets, but they're not secrets, just people are lazy to look for them. It becomes so fascinating, and the more you learn, the more you realize how little we know. And then you just want to keep learning and learning. How do we apply all these things and concepts that very successful people are doing? After you read a lot of books, you start seeing the patterns.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. And basically in this book, what I wanted to share earlier was how the little habits make a huge difference in your life. And I've been living like this for a little bit. When I went full-time in real estate, I had a job forever. So my father he was an entrepreneur to a point when I was born, but I was a little kid. So when I was 11, he retired, we went to Mexico. So I didn't get to see my dad working. So when I started working when I was 17, I had a job until I was 34. But going into a job, like going into business from different than going into a job, is now you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you cannot sit idle because you're not going to get paid, right?
Correct.
So the first thing I did is I went and bought a membership for a year at a gym, because if I did a month, I was going to be quitting the next month.
Yeah.
Because, I go whenever. So now I pay for it, I have to go.
Yeah.
So I
You're
started
like,
showing
"I'm
up.
forced."
Exactly. But anyways, where I wanted to get at is like those little habits that the book talks about.
Yeah.
Is I made that my habit. I used to go to the office at around 8:30, 9, right? And then I started reading, where most people get up earlier. And my father used to get up at 5 a.m. every morning, even after he retired. So I had that in my head, and I get up early. So I started getting up at 5, then at 4. Right now I get up at 4:30ish. And then I go do my reading, my walking, my exercise, my work with the team. And we do script practice. And then by 8 o'clock, I make my phone calls. By 10, I'm done.
Yeah.
And people think that we work like crazy all day. Now after that, it's just putting out fires all day long.
Yeah.
But during those hours, most of my most important work gets done.
Gets done.
And if I don't do anything the rest of the day,
then you're good.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Because I already took care of my body, took care of my mind, and took care of business.
Yep. And I tell people, I call it the millionaire hour, right? To when you get up that early. And they say, like, why? I said, number one, there's no distractions.
No,
right?
but
Most of your friends are not up because most of them, unless you have friends that are waking up, some of my friends now wake up this early, but half of the people that maybe are in your circle are probably not up this early because it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of, like once you start doing it, it becomes a habit. But at the start, to people, it almost seems unreal to get up that early.
And they tell you every time I tell someone, I get up at 4. Why do you get up at 4 in the morning? Well, I have cows. In Mexico, the people get up at 4 in the morning to go milk the cows. But I'm like, no, it's so refreshing because nobody's calling me. Yeah. After 8, I'll show you my phone. It's text, phone calls I have to return. Yeah. And it's just catching up with all that stuff, right? Which is important. But my most important thing is me.
Yes.
Because a lot of people don't think about themselves.
Correct.
And how can you pour into others when you're empty, right? And for me, it's very important to get nurtured in the morning, to feed my mind, feed my body.
Yes.
And then I don't feel like $1 million, I feel like $1 billion.
Yes. Let's go. We're ready. Well, a couple of things with that really impacted my life when I was doing that is, number one, I tell people by the time you get up, half my day has been 100%. Completed, right? Or a quarter of my day has already, I've done a quarter of the things I needed to do when you're just waking up. But secondly, talking about taking care of yourself and your body, we tend to care for other people, even our own pets, more than we do for ourselves.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
Dr. Peterson has a really good in one of his books where he said, we care. So like if the doctor tells you, give your mom this medicine, right, for 2 weeks, this antibiotic, you make sure to the T that she takes it every time. Or give this to your dog.
And you give her crap if she doesn't.
Yes. Or like to your dog, like give him treats to try to give him that medicine. But if a doctor tells you, take this antibiotic for 2 weeks, you take it for 1 week, you start feeling better, and then you stop taking it.
Yep.
Right? So somehow we take care less of our body than we do of anybody else, right? We care for everything and everyone before our body. But to your point, like how do you basically give to others if you're not filling your own cup? Yep. And then secondly, Pastor Stephen Furtick, which I really like his preachings and I listen to his sermons all the time, is actually, I shared in my testimony, that's how I came back. When I came back to church, I started watching him online, but he talks about in his, I think it was either in his book or one of his sermons, he's like, the way you set up your morning, he's like, matters. Why? Because let's say, and he gave a really cool illustration. So he's like, let's say you don't have good habits or you don't have a good routine and you just kind of get up and he's like, it's like stacking things on uneven surfaces. And then what happens the rest of the day, more and more things are stacked on top, right? More problems, an issue comes up. Maybe somebody calls you, gets you upset. So the more you're piling up, if that foundation is not stable, then you will fumble and fall over. Definitely. And that's when that stress happens. But if you have a good workout routine, if you like how you said, spend time with myself and my mind and I read. And so you set up this really strong foundation as you're piling things on top of yourself throughout the day. And if something comes that's really hard, you're not going to crumble. You're
going to be strong. You already have your solid ground. So it is very important to take care of the morning routine. And many people get up. One thing they used to do is get up with the news. Mm-hmm. And you're basically waking up to the world and the bad news because there's no good news in there, right?
Never. I don't watch the news for that reason.
Exactly. So I have a guilty pleasure with politics and stuff, but that's another topic. But I do get up and I don't listen or watch anything until I do my work. And then I reward myself with a little bit of TikTok. I watch some of the news. You can get a pretty good update in 2-3 minutes.
In 2-3 minutes.
You don't have to go watch the whole newscast for the hourly night or the morning show. So
you're actually so right. Like now you could get like a synopsis. Like this is all what happened in the world in 30 seconds.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay, I feel like I'm caught up. And I do watch a little bit of like that too. But I do the same. So I think we talked about this when we talked at church. So I not only watch my morning routine, but I watch my sleeping routine. So right before I go to sleep.
I need to work on that.
Yes. So that's like very crucial. And we talked a little bit about it because the first part of the morning and then the last part of the night, right before you go to sleep, is when your subconscious is at its fullest. I was telling you, I think it was
We got to go deep into that because that's important.
yeah, I think it was Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't want to quote it wrong, but I don't remember it. But I think that's who I heard it from. And he basically said, so the example he gave was, let's say you're worried about finances, right? You're like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. You're like, you know what? I'm going to go to sleep to not think about it. But that's what you were thinking about right before going to sleep, right? I don't know how I'm going to pay these bills. He's saying when you sleep for 8 hours, since that was the last thing you thought about, you're actually thinking about it for 8 hours.
Yep.
So he's like, you're not giving your mind a rest. You're actually thinking about it more. So he talked about like how important it is to really like, just like you have a solid morning routine. And I think everybody talks about it, right? Like morning routine, set up your day. But nobody talks about like right before you go to sleep. I used to scroll on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all of the Snapchat, every social media
platform.
outlet that you could think of right before going to bed. Now I have this rule where it's like at least 30 to 45 minutes before I go to sleep, I don't touch any social. I don't really even try to touch any text messages unless it's like an emergency. And I read right before I go. I actually read my Bible because I've read my Bible now from cover to cover. And now I'm doing just books. Book of Proverbs, shout out there if you haven't read it. So much life advice. But even if you're doing a regular book, right, 5 a.m. Club or any sort of book right before going to bed, or even if you want to just kind of like clear your mind, because whatever you go to sleep thinking of is what you're going to be thinking of all night.
Yep, and all day.
And
You're gonna be prepared for that and be stressed over it already. So what I did the same thing. Like I'm not even looking at anything after like at past 8. I don't want to look at it, and I have to kind of remind myself, hey, leave it alone, because we're tempted to. I mean, it's a rush, right? Like it's like a hit. Like it becomes an addiction. Like I want to see what happened.
What's happening?
¿Qué pasó la novela? What happened today? Like where are we at right now?
It becomes such a habit where it's so easy. So you do even open it like without thinking about it. Like my friend put like this timer thing where she can only watch social media for like a little bit of time. Because she's like, I would literally pick up my phone and the first app I would go to was like TikTok.
Yep.
And she's like, that was like, I would look at nothing else. She's like, and I didn't even have a reason to go on there. She's like, I would just click on it out of habit.
It's habit. And I think that's going back to the book club, and why we did it is because of that. Like people want to do crazy things like at once, and that's why diets don't work, right? People want to go on a diet for a week or 2 or a month, but it's not a habit. So how do you change your lifestyle little by little? And that's why when I did this challenge, we're doing different challenges as we go throughout the year, because it's all about feeding everything. It's not just about being just wealthy or just being healthy or just having beautiful relationships or having a great business. Is working in everything in your spiritual life, right?
Yeah.
How do you set your schedule up for success? And I want to go into that. Like, how do you set yourself up for success in your personal life, business, spiritual? Do you have a routine for that?
Yeah, so I always we'll start. I'll start with like my everyday kind of personal life, right? So I come from a family of 6, so we're very busy, and we're Mexican family, so we're always doing something. My family's very close, so I'm very busy even with them. But like the big things, my sisters know that they have to schedule it with me because of my work schedule and how busy it is. So like somebody's birthday, especially if it's on a day when I'm not normally off, like they definitely need to let me know ahead of time. Everybody's birthdays, they're on my calendar, so I use my phone calendar. That was probably a life changer for me.
Oh yeah.
Where I put everything on my calendar, even if I don't have to go to a physical appointment, but if it's something I want to do. So I do a Zoom Bible study every morning, 7 a.m., and it's on my calendar with the link just so I could get the pop-up reminder, right? I don't have to physically be there. I don't have to go. I choose to go there, but I have that reminder, so it's there in my calendar.
Right on.
And I know that it's there. Working out, I also found like that when you have an accountability partner, or if you're able to do it with somebody else, you're more apt to do it. So I do my hiking every morning with a good friend of mine. So she keeps me accountable and I keep her accountable, so that we get up at 4:30. So right when I, get up, I usually text her and say like, hey, I'm up. Even though we've been doing it now for like a few months, we still do it because sometimes, it's happened where she's kind of overslept and I've overslept
Oh, yeah.
and we've woken each other up.
That's awesome.
So good accountability there. And so everything goes on my calendar no matter what's going to be or what's going to happen.
There's a saying, right? If it's not on your calendar, it doesn't happen. It doesn't exist.
Happen. Yeah, that's what I tell people all the time. With work too, I do, you talked about tackling like the big things first. Like by 10 a.m. you've tackled
Eat
so
That
much.
Frog.
Yeah. So
Have you read that book?
the which one?
Eat That Frog?
I haven't.
It's about that, but go ahead.
But I try to tackle like my hardest things in the morning. I read this book because organization used to not be my strong suit.
Really?
And so I was just not very strong at that. So I read a book on how to be more organized.
Which one is that?
I can't think of the name, but
That's okay.
they had a cool method called the Pomodoro method. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. So it basically said you write down whatever the task is, and you put like 5 little circles, and each circle identifies as 5 minutes.
Okay.
And then you basically put like, I think this is going to take me 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever. And then you set a timer and you just give that task undivided attention. Meaning, I'm not going to pay attention to nothing else. I'm just going to do this. And if you get interrupted, you stop the timer. If obviously you have to take care of things, you take care of them, but then you start again. Number 1, it tells you how good your productivity is. But number 2, you start accomplishing so much because you just, the way that I used to do my email is I would go on my email and then answer every single email at once, right? Now what I started doing is I would check my email and put it as priority, what I needed to do first. Then I would start top most important first, then least important at the end.
Do you start your day with the emails or you start with your priorities?
So usually I'll try to do a checklist the night before of anything I need to take care of right away.
Okay.
So my checklist would probably be the first thing I need to do of like, these are things. Why? Because since I work in a hotel and that's a very fast-paced environment, like how you said, my phone doesn't stop. If it's not on my checklist, just like it's not on my calendar, sometimes it gets missed, right? And so since I'm handling so much, some of those things you can't afford to miss.
Right.
And so I would have it where people would just come in and ask me for things and I would just do them as I was going. But when I started doing my checklist, it was very good because then I would say like, okay, I took care of all these, but I'm missing this one. Okay, I need to go back and get this one done before the day left. But then I could identify, well, these at the end of the day, okay, I did all this. So it helps you see everything you've accomplished, but it also helps you see like, is there anything that could be moved till the next day?
Right.
So you could focus on something else that's more important or things that just pop up because it's inevitable that things are just going to come. Right? Yeah. You plan your day, you could say, I'm going to do all this. And then 100 things. Yeah. The reality hits you and all of the tasks.
My day's going to be perfect. No, never mind.
And then you don't get like half those things accomplished. And then the next day you're like, oh my God, I forgot to do this. But that checklist really helps me. So whatever I don't accomplish goes on my priority list for the next day.
Right.
So that was part of like what the book recommended. And it's really helped me, honestly, to stay on track. Another thing is at the end of the week, I love looking through my notebook. I'm kind of old school.
Your accomplishments.
And then I'll do like, oh my God, I got so much done.
That's
like
good.
I got all this done. So, or I tell people, even if you're feeling like low, you could always go back and say like, look at everything I've done.
Look at the wins. And I think, and I don't know if it's this book or the next one, they talk about before the end of the night, celebrate your wins. Mm-hmm. Have 2 or 3 wins that you got that day so that you can go and feel accomplished. I was asking you about the emails because a lot of people, what they do is basically emails are requests from somebody else. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing is you're responding to other people's priorities versus yours. And I like what you said because you want to focus on your priorities so that you can finish up and win the day. If anything is urgent, I'm sure people will call you or text you. Is that right?
Or they'll come to my office.
Exactly. and most people don't realize that. And they like, no, I just got to check my emails. You got to do productive work because you can be busy or you can be productive. You can be both, right?
Correct.
But sometimes most people get busy and they're, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. Are you being productive though? In our business, right? Are you making appointments? Are you meeting people? Or are you just busy doing paperwork that's not going to produce anything, right?
Correct.
So I like that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you find out the book, let me know. I'm
going to find it. Yeah. And I think I ended up finding it. And it was like, I can't remember where I saw it, but it was like one of those interactive books, you know, where you write on. I didn't want to write on it because I don't know. I just like to keep. Now I write on books, but back then I was like, oh, I wanted to keep it newer. But that Pomodoro method was really cool because it also helped me see. So like back then I was doing scheduling. Now I like my team does the scheduling, but back then I was doing scheduling so I could see week by week how long it would take me. So then I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to put an hour for scheduling when it really takes me 20 minutes,
15
right?
minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it helped me really see those repeated tasks. Okay, it takes you 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So then I knew I should be able to get this done.
Oh yeah, and there's it's called a horseman's corollary or Parkinson's law. Of whatever time you allow that activity to take, that's how long it's going to take. So what I do with my team members is they need to provide me with a 15-minute tracker. What are they working on? And at the beginning, they're like, "Are you micromanaging?" No, it's just for you to be aware. Because you can tell me, and I had an employee that I had to let go because she's like, "Oh yeah, it takes me like 30 minutes." All right, let's go. Sit down. Let's do it real quick. 5 minutes. So you can lie to yourself very easily, or to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be productive. I mean, we're in business, and we need to make sure that we're delivering. And it's so fascinating to see how these little things that you implement in your daily tasks to change and make your day more productive, and at the end of the day feel more accomplished, and again do more things, right?
Yeah, and it makes you like, here's the biggest thing that I tell people all the time. So when I like do this, I'm a finisher by nature, like and that's one thing that I tell people all the time. You want to be a finisher, right? You don't want to start something and not finish it. True. Even if you're not going to go on with it, if you're not going to do it, because a lot of times we're like, oh, I want to do this, and you start it. Oh, I want to do this, right? And you start it, but then there's no finishing like product at the end. So to me, it's like a blessing and a curse because I love to see, like, I love the process, but I want to see the end product. Like, I want to see that thing done. And that helped me a lot, like, even with the house, because that's kind of what kept me working and going. I wanted to see, like, we're painting. I want to see this room done, right? Or I hired somebody to bring the wall down. I want to see it done in, like, as fast as possible because I wanted to see that finished product. But I tell them, like, keeping that task list and focusing and being aware of how long it takes you helps you see finished product.
Definitely.
So not just like I'm starting 10 different items, but I completed nothing. But you could say, these are the items I've completed, like not only started, but completed.
Right.
And so that's a big one that has helped me as well, is seeing, okay, these are all the things I have finished. These are the things we're working on. And even with celebrating the small wins, and a friend of mine in LA told me this, because a lot of times you have a goal. So like, let's say, you want to get your real estate license and you do the classes, and after the classes, you do the test, and then you finally take the test or whatever, or maybe you study. But people kind of see that goal and they're like, oh, it's so long, right? And they don't feel like they're winning because they feel like, okay, I finished the classes. Oh, now I have to take the practice exams. So what my friend told me is like, celebrate every small win because that helps you keep going and finishing the overall task.
And I think that's so important even in life, right? Like if a lot of people want to get to that destination, which we typically keep moving the pole, but when I don't know if Pastor mentioned this last week, like when I have this, I'll be happy. Mm-hmm. When I do this, I'll be happy. Just enjoy the process. And it's really hard because when you're trying to get to that point because you have this goal, well, celebrate it little by little. Mm-hmm. I finished the training. Correct. Now I'm studying. I finished the cram course. I feel like I'm ready. Well, you failed. You didn't fail. You just missed that. Let's go back and keep doing it again. We have agents that have taken the test more than 11, 12, 15 times, but they didn't give up.
Exactly.
But those that did fail were the ones that quit.
Yep.
So, and I think we're the same personalities. I want things like yesterday.
Yes.
That wall, is it not taken down yet? And they haven't even showed up yet.
That's how I am. I'm like, I want this done. Like, I'm impatient. I think God is working on my patience because I'm like, God, why are you testing me so much? Because I'm like that. Like, we want to see results, right? We want to see that end product. But what's really kept me going, not only in life, number one is who you become in the process. Sometimes it's more beautiful than the end product.
100%.
And that's like the beautiful part of it. But we're so fixated on like finish that sometimes we don't see that. But also, like I tell people, when you celebrate those small wins, because I used to not do that. And it's really easy to get frustrated or give up or say
You just
like,
oh my gosh, why this isn't working?
or I'm not getting anywhere. And I tell people like, when you celebrate, this friend of mine, something small would happen. She's like, oh, we got to go out to eat and celebrate. And I was like, well, yeah, but I still have to take the, and she's like, this is a celebration because this finished, right? This portion finished. When I started looking at it like that, I was like, she's right. Because like usually goals are comprised of a lot of little things you get done.
100%.
And not like the big product. A lot of people say
You
like,
didn't get there just with the flight.
correct. Or like when I tell people like, oh, I bought a house. But I'm like, a lot of it is like, did I make a phone call the loan officer, right? Did I send that text message or that email? Did I pay off that bill? All of those are steps that you take, right? Did I call my realtor? Did I go look at a house? Those are all steps that get you to your goal, and they're part of that process. And if you start looking at those as wins or just doing one thing that gets you closer to your goal, whether it's making that phone call, sending that text, doing a little bit of research, you're one step closer than you were yesterday.
Definitely. And I think in life, everything is like that. Like most people didn't get to where they're at. For example, I wanted to go back to your employment. How did you end up going from here to Florida?
So originally, I was here and I had been in hospitality, I think, for a while. I was in a boutique hotel. I had a friend of a friend who worked in Florida, and she was a director of HR. And so she's like, I have this position. And here I was a director of hotel operations, so higher than even the position I'm in now, right? So at first I was like, oh, like people get so caught up in titles. And I was like, oh, like I'm going to go to front office director. Like I'm going to go down in title. But then she's like, but you're coming to Waldorf. Hey, like you're coming to work for one of the best luxury brands in the world. In hotel in the world. And you're coming to work for Hilton, right? Number one employment you're going from boutique. So you're going from being a
little mom and pop, basically.
Yep, like a small fish. They basically told me like this: you could be a big fish in a small pond, or a small fish in a big pond.
Wow.
And so I decided to just kind of make the leap and go. And well, they flew me out there and showed me the beauty of living in an island. They got me on a jet ski and they convinced me to move there. And I was like, oh, this is great.
I'm sold.
Yeah, sold.
Forget about the title.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even care where I'm coming. I'm coming to live here. They actually, that's probably one of the most intense, but one of the coolest interview processes I've been through, because I interviewed with 9 different people to get the position. So all of their executive committee members. But then they also got me in a jet ski and a sunset cruise. They showed me around the island. So then they showed me like, yes, it's really intense, like to get the job, but look how cool and amazing this company is and how cool and amazing like this job is. And I tell people that all the time, just to kind of give people a nugget, is when you're interviewing with somebody, they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them, right? And
do I really want to work with you guys?
Yeah, do I really want to work with you? Does the culture that you have here line up with what my beliefs are, with what I want, where I see my future going? And a lot of people, especially like we talked about young people and looking for their identity, is they don't realize that and they don't know that. Is I always tell them like, you're looking at them just as much as you, so ask questions. When I was in, I mean, I've done so many things, but when I was in college, I used to actually be in a business club. I was the president of my business club and the vice president.
You've always been a leader.
Yeah, it's kind of been in me, but I used to do job interviews as a national competition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so part of that, one of the questions is, did she ask any questions? And if you didn't, they would dock you points. So they had a whole checklist. So I always tell people, like, always go in with questions, always go in, with researching the company, ask them what, their culture is like, things that are important to you and your work lifestyle that you want to have, because they're going to ask you all those questions too, right? So it has to be kind of like a two-way street. But really just like knowing that is something that you're also interviewing them. But that's how I ended up there. And I ended up being there for almost 2 years.
Wow.
And I thought, I live in an island and everyone's going to come visit me because it's awesome. But it was really far and none of my family ever went to go visit me.
Florida's beautiful.
Yeah. I got kind of homesick and I wanted to be closer to my family, to the West Coast. But I wanted, I wanted big hotels under my name. I didn't want like just any hotel. I didn't want to move like back to Arizona or just back to the West Coast for any job. And that's how I ended up seeing the Beverly Hilton had an opening. And just to tell you a little bit about the Beverly Hilton, it's Hilton's flagship hotel. It's very iconic. It was Conrad Hilton's first hotel.
Wow.
And it was the first hotel with like color televisions in their room. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, they were like...
It has history in it.
Yes, and they kind of led the way to luxury. They had like a restaurant with no menu prices, right? Because it's right in the middle of Beverly Hills. So it was...
If you're here, you can afford it.
Exactly. If you're going to be here for dinner, you don't care about the prices, right? So it had a lot of really cool things. They host the Golden Globes every year. We hosted pre-Grammy parties, pre-Oscar parties. So
people live their residences there too, right?
we had a few residents when I worked there, that lived there. I probably had my longest resident live there for about 2 years.
Right.
So there's a few people that do.
It wasn't Josh Flagg, right? The real estate guy. I've seen him and he actually lives there for a little bit. It's crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
It's actually really cool when you see like people that live there, because you're like, oh my gosh, like you live in a hotel, like, and a lot of people don't see that, but they, kind of
Why not?
make that their life. Exactly. And that they can afford it and they like to be in the middle of things. But that's how I ended up in Florida, and then that's how I ended up coming back to the West Coast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you are here in Phoenix now, in Scottsdale in particular.
Yeah, so when I moved back here, I wanted to move back home because I want to be close to family. But again, I didn't want to move just to not move, to move, right? And leaving the Beverly Hilton is kind of hard because it's a monster of a property. So...
And the area is beautiful. Like my buddy owns a restaurant in West Hollywood by Rodeo Drive in Santa Monica.
Oh,
it's
that's
beautiful.
Nice, yes.
And I used to hang out with them all the time up there. And it's just a whole different vibe.
Yeah.
It's like you feel like you're on vacation all the time.
Yes. And it really taught me, LA taught me a lot that you should dream really big.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because you see all the celebrities and you're like, a lot of people are like, oh, these people are dreamers. But you see them, and a lot of these people, their hard work, their dedication, and their like nonstop resilience got them where they were. Mm-hmm. So something I tell like my little sister, my little brother all the time is like, if your dreams are like obtainable, you're dreaming too low.
Too low, yeah.
So you have to dream bigger, right? Like they have to kind of seem crazy to people, like when you tell them.
Definitely. I got to share something about that because my coach challenged me and he asked, what is it that you want to do this year? And I mentioned last year we did about 1.6 million in volume, and that's in sales. And I said, no, about 2 million. And he's like, 2 million, that's basically just the market getting a little bit better. And he's like, why not 10x it? And your mind just completely gets blown, right? 10x. That's like 20 million. Well, what do you have to do? Or what do you have to stop doing to get there? And it's crazy that you say that because it is possible. It is like, what are you willing to do or not willing to do? And what do you have to do in order for you to get there? You don't have to sell your soul. Like you can really do it, but it's just how we think.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most powerful things that I've learned throughout all these years with the books is how big can you think, because it is doable. And the most or the easiest way to see it is when you're in front of those people and you talk to them and you're like, shit, they're like me. Mm-hmm. They're humans like me.
Yep.
They just did other things that I'm not daring or willing to do.
That I'm
but
scared
it's doable.
to do.
Exactly, because it's doable, right? And it just goes to show you. So we're doing a seminar on the 29th of March, and it's going to be about how can you own 33 properties, because one of my buddies, he owns 33 homes in the last 5 years.
Invite me to that.
Yeah. It's going to be on 29th of March from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we bring, coffee, pastries, and then we do a little lunch. But we want to show people that this is possible. I started 5 years ago investing. I own about 16. And I like, it's only 16. But for some people, like, what?
Yeah.
Right? So did I 10x from my one property that I owned 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. But how did I do it? I just got out of my comfort zone. And I went on a little rabbit hole here, but I want to just show people that what you're saying is so true.
Yeah.
And that lifestyle, man, like imagine just living for the heck of it in the Beverly Hotel, right?
Yes, exactly. To have that much money, right? So I saw money like I've never seen before. I was like, it was like crazy, right? So we used to have like prince and princesses stay with us from Saudi Arabia. And these people would tip people $100 bills for like printing a copy, because, and I still till this day think they don't know what a dollar bill is. Like they only
never seen
carry
one?
hundreds. Yeah. Because she would be like, oh, can you like print this for me? And you'd be like, oh yeah, of course, right? Like that's part of my job. She's like, here's $100. And then, oh, somebody would open the door, here's $100. And she would just be handing out $100. So my team already knew, right? So they would always be, they're servicing
way above, more
above and beyond. But I'm like, I don't think they've ever seen a dollar bill or 20. I mean, they never gave 20s, nothing. It was
They don't
all,
ever want change.
Yeah, it was all hundreds. But you see this amount of money that is just like crazy that you're like, I would joke because part of my department was the valet and bell department. And I would joke with them that, Porsches and Ferraris were like Hondas in Beverly Hills because people would
Bentleys,
have them all the time. Yeah,
Rolls
the
Royce.
Bentleys, because I would call the Lamborghini Urus, the soccer mom van of like, or the
No way.
soccer mom car of Beverly Hills.
That
'cause
crazy.
everybody like had those kinds of cars and you see them and then you kind of see this lifestyle and you're like, wow, like to your point, how are they doing it, right? How did they get here? How can they afford this? But just to go back and what you said, like, okay, your goal was 2 million, but let's say why not 10x it? And let's just say you don't make the 10x, you make the 5x. You were trying to do 2 million and now you're going to do 5, right? So it's like, I think that mentality shift was probably one of the biggest takeaways I took from my life in LA was like, dream huge, dream big. If it doesn't work out, you at least you're going up.
You're going further than you thought before because now your mindset is going into a different direction, right?
Correct.
And then again, what is it? How is that change going to occur? It's not going to happen by doing the same thing. What was Einstein saying about insanity?
Basically doing the same thing over and over again. Like definition of crazy is
Yeah,
it the
definition of insanity, right? Like expecting
the same
different
thing.
results. You cannot change your results unless you change the things you are doing. And for me, it's like, okay, how do I do what I love? Because I want to enjoy what I do too. I don't want to just make money to make money.
Correct.
Because going back to our earlier conversation about life, family, business, and spiritual, you have to make time for that. And if you don't do that, then are you just spending all your time at work trying to get to that goal and you're sacrificing your family, your health? So you have to be conscious about all the things you do. But how do you change the things you do to get there?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
One thing I did want to say is, people, we always think about money. That was me. I still think about money. But one thing I think about now more is my time. Because the time is the one thing that nobody pays you for. I mean, yeah, your job pays you for, but like, let's say you're going out to do stuff. You're not getting paid for that, right? You're choosing to do that, but that's time you'll never get back. So now I think a lot more than money as I think about my time. Because that's the one commodity that nobody pays you for, but you never get back.
You cannot buy it. Like the time that we just spent here cannot be purchased. It's gone.
Correct.
Right? But in a good way, I feel like we're investing it and for other people to see it.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah. And not only are we having fun, but hopefully this helps, a lot of
Someone
people.
give that little spark.
Exactly.
And going back to wealth, a lot of times in our culture, it's frowned upon. Like, don't talk about money. Why are you? Well, don't you go to work?
Yeah.
Don't tell me you go to work for fun. Right?
Exactly.
And we have to have these conversations where people are thinking obviously about God and God will provide you.
Yes.
However, you have to go out and you have to be a good steward, right? God gave you talents. You got to take advantage of them so that you can provide opportunity for others. And I think that's what we're doing. We're not doing this just for greed or I want to have power. I want to have money. No, money is as good as the good you're going to do with it.
Yep. Well, those it says those who are trusted with the little will be given a lot, right?
Yep.
And so I feel like in order to help, because and I think this will probably segue us into the spiritual is, in order to help others, and a lot of times that requires money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I just did our Bible study in person event, right? That I told you about.
How did it go? First of all.
Oh my God, it was so powerful. It was amazing. We did it was really filled with the Holy Spirit and God really moved and it was amazing. But that event required money.
You need to spend now take time out of your day, which you're not making money, and then spend money to make it happen.
Correct. So, but it touched so many lives, and I can tell you that I saw a lot of change. But in order to do that and to help others and to be a good steward, you need money and you need to be able to steward that well, right? And so I talked to my mom, who is very big in her faith as well. But I told her you need to leave that like scarce mentality, that scarcity mentality behind, because she came here as an immigrant, right? And you know, brought us here when we were little. And so her mentality is always kind of like, oh my gosh, we need like to like kind of lack mentality.
You wanna save everything because
Yeah.
you're what if?
Or you're scared, or you're like, oh, like this is too much. I even joke with her, like, you know, she tries to always use the recalentado over and over again. And I'm like, Mom, like you need to let it go after the third day. You know, like
you're just eating bacteria.
yeah, like I'm like, it's too much. But you know, I told her when I came back from California and I was gonna end up buying the house, she's like, don't you think it's so fast? Like you just got here. And I said, look, I said, if we're gonna do this, I need you to leave this scare mentality behind. I said, because I'm gonna do it regardless. And I'd rather have you on my support team than to like kind of speaking fear into me, right? There's life and death in the power of the tongue.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whatever you're saying, you know, whether I want to think about it or not, I think about it. So I need you to be on my team.
We got to pull together.
Yeah. I told her, like, I need you to leave the fear behind. I need you to push forward. Whatever happens, happens. We're going to go all in. And, you know, if something, you know, doesn't go as planned, then I'll deviate to plan B.
100%.
Right? But I'm like, you need to, like, kind of go in there with positive mindset and trust. And it's funny because now I feel like she's like so positive. She wants to do it all, which is great.
Now you're getting scared.
Yeah, now I'm like, oh wait, calm
Mom,
down.
you're scaring me.
You know, like calm down. But no, like to your point, because a lot of it is how they grew up, right? And so I told her,
I still have it. Like I went to Orlando. We went to a
Yeah.
conference, and I'm like took the team to. We went to Universal. Universal Studios, and I go and get a Gatorade, right? And from one for me, one for my wife, and I drank mine. And after I finished it, I put the bottle in the pocket. Why do you think I did it?
to save it and refill it.
I'm gonna go refill it with water.
Yeah.
And I caught myself. I'm like, I can buy another one.
Yeah.
And again, it's not that you want to just waste, but it's just that we think about that. We
Yes.
want to just save, conserve.
Yeah.
Can I do it? Yes, I can. Now I can buy it, right?
And you probably would have never filled it up because
No.
you probably would have wanted another Gatorade.
Exactly.
You would have been carrying it with you
Exactly.
the whole time.
But it's just how we think. And still, like, my kids are like, Dad, we're going to do this. And I'm like, wait. And then I catch myself and they're like, oh, you know what? Yeah, you're right. And now they're like, my little one, she takes advantage of that. Daddy, you can't think like that. I'm like, oh.
You can't have that scarcity mindset.
I know.
No, but it's true because like one thing about like changing your routines, your habits, and everything you're doing, all of that is great. But if what you're telling yourself, you speak to yourself more than anybody
Exactly.
else.
Neurolinguistics.
Yeah. So if you're telling yourself like negativity or bad things or things that are not uplifting, like you're not, it's going to be very hard for you to get up from where you're at. So I've always been very positive. And I actually, I hosted a Bible study in my friend's house the other day. And what I talked about was, joy, gratitude. It was joy, gratitude, and faith. And, one of the things that I talked to them about was, it says in the Bible, like, rejoice always. Not sometimes.
No matter what's going on.
No matter what's going on. Good, bad, or indifferent. All the time. God is saying all the time you need to rejoice. Why? Because when you start being negative, again, like we said, there's life and death in the power of the tongue, right? Like when you start being negative and telling yourself negative things or scarcity mindset things like, oh, we can't afford this, we can't do this. So I've always kind of been like, no, I can't afford it. And if I don't have the money now, like, then what do I need to do to be able to get that money? Or I am going to be able to finish this project. I am going to be able to get this job. I am going to be able to sell this house or whatever it is that you're doing. Not only am I speaking it, now I'm writing it, which is even more powerful. But I tell my friends all the time. I was hiking with my friend the other day and I was like, and she was just kind of trying to be negative. And I was like, you need to stop that. Yeah. Like, to herself,
it drains you.
Yeah. And I said, because it's gonna affect you. Like, I'm not trying to be mean. I was like, but the more you, like, sometimes you do it without even thinking about it. Because either like that's how you've been raised, right?
Yeah.
Or that's what you've been kind of wired to do, like to be a natural warrior or like something. And I'm like, you need to start focusing on like positive. Are you like, I would ask my team, I would write down like 10 things I'm grateful for. And I would ask them like, just randomly, like if I said like, oh, like Juan would tell me 3 things you're grateful for. And they would sit there and think about it for like 10 minutes. I'm like, did you drive here today? They're like, yeah. I'm like, so your car. I was like, do you have an apartment where you live? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, so your house, right? but they couldn't think about 3 things they were grateful for, you know? And I'm like, why is it so hard? Like, because we don't think about the positive, right? We're only thinking
We're
of,
always thinking negative, and that's in our nature. And unfortunately, we feed a lot into it. And why, going back to the news, what we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
they get you because the news are bad news, and you're like, yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah.
What happens when you're driving on the freeway and there's an accident?
and everybody, there's a
What-
traffic.
It's
when
on the
there's
other side,
clear.
and this side is also stopped. Why? Because you want to see the negative. We're just drawn to it.
Yeah.
So we have to fight it and be strong about it because we are naturally going to look for that. And you're right. I mean, we're always looking for that. So
Yeah.
it's good to be conscious and good to have people like you that open up to the positive. I think I mentioned this to you when we were talking. Back in 2003, 4, I was super negative.
Oh, yeah, you told me about it, yeah.
And so I was working at a store at Albertsons, and I worked there as a clerk, and they put me as a manager for a little department. And the supervisor was like, he would come by and be like, "Hey, Juan, how you doing?" I'm like, "Good." I'm like, "You? Terrific." And I'm like, "What's wrong with this guy?" Just
He's
think
too
about
nice.
it. This guy, what's wrong with this guy? Because he's so nice and so positive and so excited. So he changed my life completely just by saying that. So when people ask me, I still to this day say I'm terrific.
Yes.
Regardless of how I'm feeling, because that instantly makes me feel
Yeah,
better.
better.
No matter what I'm going through, and about going back to the Bible,
Yes.
you have to be positive. And also the other thing is faith,
Yes.
joy and faith. You mentioned that. And you got to have faith. Like when you're thinking, oh, I'm going to do this, but but if it doesn't work, it's okay. You got to burn the freaking bridges. Just go. Right? When I
Yeah.
decided to do real estate full time, I got fired. And I rejoiced that day because for the last 3 times that I quit to go and be a realtor, I quit. I went back to work, and I went back to work, and I prayed to God, and I'm like, God, I want to do this 100%. I just feel in my heart, this is what I want to do. I get fired, and I've never ever been fired before. So I'm like, I got the message.
Yep.
After that day, I went 100% on real estate, and back then in 2011, houses were selling for $30,000. My commissions were like $800, and they were short sales. And there was nothing short about it. It would take me a year to close those. So I was making more off of rentals than sales, and God took care of me. Like, have faith, and things will line up, and I never looked back. I mean, now talk about 14 years in the making, and God has blessed us beyond belief.
That's awesome.
Because I trusted Him. And I actually, literally, I said, you know what, God, I'm tired. Before I got fired, I said, I'm done. That's my testimony. I am done trying. I had 4 or 5 jobs at a time.
Yeah.
And I was making maybe like a 15th of what I'm making right now.
Yeah.
And with those freaking 5 jobs, and God's had taken care of me. Do I worry every now and then? I do. And I say, you know what, God, you're in control. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
I'm going to be happy about it. And I don't stress. Like they were asking me earlier, how do you sleep? Because I've got all kinds of stuff going on. and I'm like, well, very like a baby.
Yeah.
You know, I get so tired.
Don't
I'm
be
done.
anxious about anything, but instead with prayer, supplication, and thanksgiving, right? Pray about
Amen.
everything.
100%.
And honestly, it's true like that. And you have to believe it that it's already done. I tell people like, faith is not saying like, oh yeah, I believe you, but then you don't believe him, right? Like
You truly
faith is
believe.
hard,
You gotta, all
right?
in.
But you have to say like, I know it's already done, and like that's the one thing that I think sometimes we forget. And to talk about like faith, like we talked about spiritual, that really changed my life completely.
You want to share your testimony? Because I was going to go there, but I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Awesome.
So I will, share a little bit of my testimony as well. But, now with just before I segue into that, with my faith, I go to church, every Sunday. This last Sunday I didn't because I was at work. But every Sunday I make it a point to like, that's like my time. Like it's sacred, right? My family, I go with my mom, I go with my sister, and then I go on Wednesday. So me and my mom go to Wednesday night church to a church.
Stadium?
Yeah, we actually go to a church right by our house since we live, in Glendale.
But it's kind of far.
Yeah, and I'm not able to make it there by the time I come from Old Town. But so I do Wednesdays and Sundays, and then I do the Bible study daily where I listen in and participate via Zoom. I read the Bible from cover to cover this last year, and now I'm kind of just doing different chapters. This is actually really cool that my Bible study shared it, and I've been doing that. It's a Proverbs a day, a Psalm a day, and then you read like one chapter from your book.
Okay.
And so Proverbs, I recommend to anybody, like if you haven't read any of the Bible, and if you don't like to read, get the Bible app and put it on audio. and just listen to Proverbs while you're driving, while you're getting ready. Well, like it's like the rules of life is kind of what I call it, right? Like it's really cool to kind of read that because it gives you so much knowledge of what we read in these books that they talk about when you deep dive, and people don't put two and two together.
It's crazy that the Bible has pretty much every solution that we find in these books in there. Like it has advice for everything. Everything you can imagine. Even what you don't think about, it's there.
It's there, yeah. And then when you do the deep dives, you're like, wow. And when you like kind of go in and read it and you're like, oh my gosh, this talks about money, it talks about marriage, it talks about, like life. It talks literally about everything.
Business, everything.
Yeah.
You can find everything in there.
100%. But to go into like my testimony a little bit. So I've always been like the party girl, right? Life of the party. I would go out when I lived here in Old Town, or Scottsdale, Old Town is like a big party scene here. And for those that don't know Arizona, Old Town is like super crazy. When I went to South Florida, Key West was a big party town. So I've always worked a lot and I've always had my goals and I always worked. But just as much as I worked, I partied. So I was like, I work hard, so I deserve to party hard. So I would go party, drink and, like work Monday through Friday or maybe like whatever days I worked. And then the weekend, it was just like all party, party, party. And even in LA when I was there, and it wasn't, but I always grew up in the church. So I grew up in the church since I was 8. When you get older, you kind of think your way is better, right? So I'm like, oh, my parents don't know what they're talking about. Like, I want to be out on my own, do my own thing. And it's kind of how I got away and just started partying and doing the absolute most. When I moved to LA, something in my life just kind of said, like, you need a change. Like, nothing was fulfilling. Okay. So, like,
even though you were having fun, you were still not happy.
And even though I was having fun and achieving, because at the same time, I was like,
you were go-getter.
I want to, make this much money by the time I'm, 22 years old or 25 years old, and I would make it. And I'd be like, I want to do this, and I would make it. But then I would get it, and then I was like, I was ready for the next thing. I was like, oh, this is how this feels empty. Like I'm ready for and I was always like, nothing was fulfilling to where I was just ambition, and party. And I mean, I'm not proud of it, but when I was doing it, drove drunk, did all these things that I'm definitely not proud of anymore.
I mean, we go through all that. I went through that, yeah.
I think kind of everybody does. When I was in LA, I started watching the sermons from Stephen Furtick back again online on YouTube. So if you haven't gone to church, I recommend you to go to church, but if not, do it on YouTube. Because at least you're doing something, right? You're feeding your mind with something. And when I started watching his sermons, it's kind of when I went through this life change where I started like reading more books, focusing more on myself. I would always kind of go to the gym and be active, but I like really honed in on the gym. I like would do cardio in the morning, would lift in the evening, would read the books, would watch the sermons, but I was still like, my friend said it, you're holy all week, and then you wild out in the weekend, like she's like, then you wild out in the weekend. She's like, you can't, she basically even told me.
Called
like,
you out, basically.
Yeah, she called me out. She's like, you can't be doing that, like where you're like all God all week, and then in the weekend you just kind of go and have fun. And it's hard because my family's a big Mexican family. So even though my mom is a believer and my little sister, my older sisters are not, right? And like the rest of my family is not. My dad is not. I grew up at the beginning Catholic. And so every carne asada is a big party.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, el bautizo, it's a party. Everybody's going to get drunk. Where's el bautizado? I don't know.
Drinking, there's music.
Even kids' parties.
Yeah, it's all just crazy, And so even if you like don't want to drink, it becomes a drinking thing. So then I started deciding, you know what, I'm going to just like stop drinking the hard alcohol. I was only drinking beer and wine, but we'd still drink on the weekend. Our pastor, Pastor David, did a great sermon, and he did this great illustration of 2 stairs. And he said, you could keep going up on a step on each stair, right? The world and what you're doing and your faith, until one point you have to make a decision. Like, are you going to still be tattering back and forth, or are you going to kind of go all in? And so I decided to like stop fully drinking and stop fully like just doing anything that I'm like, okay, that's not part of the life that I want to like do anymore. And I tell people all the time, because my friends are like, usually when you do that, some of your circle is very happy, and then some of your circle is like, oh, like you think you're like better than us, or you think you're weird, right? And you're being weird, or why are you doing that? And so I said, because I don't want that for my life, is a perfect reason to not do something anymore.
And you mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
You start losing people. But in reality, are you really losing people, or are you gaining the right people in your life? Because whoever you hang out, that's what you're gonna become.
Correct.
Earlier, we made a decision to let someone go, and it's hard, right? But at the end of the day, do you want negativity to affect the rest? And it's like cancer, right? If you let it grow, it's gonna be bad, and it's basically kind of not cancer literally, but that's growing in your life, and little by little, we're damaging ourselves. I used to smoke I started smoking when I was like 11 years old.
Yeah.
And that's when I
At
saw.
11.
Yeah. I grew up in Mexico. I used to walk to school just to smoke a cigarette.
I smoked when I was working because you would get an extra break.
Oh,
You would get a 10-minute break.
and you get a smoking break.
A smoking break.
But then my father, when I back about 13 years ago, he passed away, and he had lung cancer. And he would tell me, son, if I could breathe, I would be so happy. He was 80 years old. He had a beautiful life. However, he still wanted to live. And if he didn't smoke, that would have been a different story. But going back to I'm going to just share a little bit about my story in that regard. And it was about 2 months after my dad passed. My little one was like 5 years old. And I'm in the front yard smoking a cigarette. And she's like, Daddy, what are you doing? At this point, we go to church already. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, you have two angels, an evil one and a good one. And the evil one's telling you to smoke. Throw it away. And she runs into the house. And it got me thinking, right? So the next day, I'm in the backyard smoking a cigarette. She comes out with the middle one, and they start playing. And then my little one's like, Daddy, what did I tell you? And then the middle one's like, Paulina, leave him alone. Drugs are very hard to quit. That was it.
You're like,
that was the last day.
The changing point.
How can I tell my kids not to smoke?
Yeah.
If I'm doing it.
Correct.
How can I tell them not to drink if I'm doing it? So our party, same thing. It was their birthday. This was when they were really little. We used to drink and get drunk, right? And be like,
yeah. It was our party instead of
exactly.
the kids' party.
And you forget about the kid. It was their birthday. So we then moved, and then I said, you know what? From going forward, when we do our kids' parties, it's going to be a kids' party. We're going to go to Chuck E. Cheese. We're going to go to Papa, whatever that was. And we used to just celebrate their birthdays with their friends. For them, not us getting drunk and forgetting about them. And then made a completely shift in our life. And my kids, they're awesome kids. I mean, they don't drink, and they're, I think at this point they're super great. 22, 21, and one of them lives in Tempe, and I mean they're good.
Yeah.
Because of the example you give them. Are they going to be perfect? I don't think so. I'm not, right?
And they're going to make their own mistakes. I think 100%. I tell my mom all the time, like, you have to also show them grace, right? Because we also tend to be very like, I mean, I don't have any children, but we tend to be very much like, oh, don't do that. Like, why are you doing that? And I said, you need to lead with love.
And you also need to remember when you were that age, how you think. Like for
Correct.
my kids, for the way they are right now, compared to what I was, completely
angels.
day and night, angels.
My nephews are too.
I have nothing. I have to tell them, go out, go do something.
Go do something. Aren't you going to go out and... why are you home so early, or why don't you? You're right. I mean, but at the same time, like in this last weekend in the Bible study, one of the pastors there that gave one of the classes, he said, your spiritual maturity is determined by how you love people. He said, because it's very easy to love those who love you.
Oh yeah.
He said, but can you love those who are not loving you back, or maybe are not being kind to you back? And talking about teams, just because we're talking about leadership, he said, a lot of times we ask from our team, give, what, right? Are you meeting your numbers? What are you doing? But what are we doing to pour back into them?
100%.
And what are we doing to helping them grow or helping them develop? And that's how you kind of show that love to them, right? And the same thing with your kids. Like I tell my mom and my sisters all the time, like, show them grace by also realizing maybe you weren't like that, but maybe talking to them from a place of, maybe that wasn't the best idea, but this is what you could have done instead, to where they see that love, that you care and affection, rather than like a screaming match, right? Or like
100%.
And upsetting. Definitely.
One of the things that I learned recently was that when you talk to your kids, you have to discipline them in a good way, because they do care. Like they notice that you care by the amount of attention you're putting to what they're going through.
Yes.
Even though you might say, you know what, I don't really appreciate what you did. It wasn't the greatest decision. I hope you learn from it, right? But in the meantime, hey, what are you doing? Are you okay?
Yeah.
What's going on? Because they do truly want to know that you care about them, even though they're gone. And that was the eye opening, because a lot of times we don't want to discipline our kids because we're afraid they're not going to like us. But they understand that you truly care. Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, they're like, you know what, my dad or my mom really care because they're disciplining me because they truly care. If they didn't, they're like, oh, whatever, do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want, yeah.
And I grew up in a place like that where my mom was amazing. She was very Catholic, the Hueso Colorado, and the neighborhood that I grew up at, most of my friends are dead or in jail. And it was because their parents were not present. They let them smoke. Mm-hmm. My mom would know, and she would get so upset she would hit me with the belt. Back then, they could. And
chancla, the belt, whatever they found.
El cable de la plancha, whatever she found. But it was good that because I would have her right here when I was with my friends and they were doing stupid stuff. I would be like, my mom would really, beat me up if she found out.
You always had fear for your mom. That's how I always was. I had fear for my mom. But to your point, it says like, what the Bible says, like the father corrects you, right? So like a good father corrects you, like God corrects us. Yeah. And so as a father and mother, you should correct your children, right? And you don't want them to kind of be led through the wrong path. But to your point, like when I went through college, so I went back to school. I was already living on my own and doing my own thing because I moved out very young. And my mom didn't live with me. She didn't pay any of my bills. But there was a point where I wanted to take a break because I was very overwhelmed. And I told her like, hey, I think I'm going to take a break because, I'm very overwhelmed. And she's like, it's not a good idea. And I could have been, I didn't live with her. She didn't pay any of my bills. I could have been like, forget you. I'm going to do whatever I want. But to your point, I cared so much about what she thought, right? What she thought, like her correction was so important to me that I actually did not stop school. I ended up graduating. I have my bachelor's degree in business. Congrats. Thank you. And then a big part of it was her because telling me no, telling me like, hey, it's not a good idea because you're not going to go back. Mm-hmm. Life happens, and she kind of told me all these different things that really made me not want to disappoint her. So I didn't do it. So something I always tell my sisters is with your children, set high standards for them as well. Not because you're trying to, obviously not unrealistic to where they're killing themselves to accomplish it, but high enough to where you set for them to want better for themselves.
Definitely.
Because they do care about what your parents think. Like I cared so much about what my mom thought, and a lot of what I've done in life is really to like make her proud. But it's also because I wanted to do it, but I also never wanted to disappoint her.
100%. Yeah. We're thinking about them all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your generous time. I know we can go on for days here.
I know. Yes. It's always such a fun time.
We will do it again.
We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing and being vulnerable.
Yeah, no,
appreciate you.